Good afternoon, all. I'm Krishna Mukherjee from EPS. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to the Economic Times live webinar, Build and Scale Your Application, powered by IBM. Today, about 9 out of 10 enterprises have cloud applications, and about 84% of CIOs believe that they have cut application costs by switching to a cloud platform. With cloud, building your own application, deploying and scaling them easier than ever before. Running your applications on the cloud helps you make your best ideas a reality. Where the customized software, solutions, and that will transform your business and is built quickly and at scale. To understand how to build and scale your application, let me hand it over to Deepak Rai, Senior Technical Architect, IBM. Also, I would request you all to be please present till the end of the webinar and fill in the feedback. Also visit webinar website for detailed terms and conditions. Before I hand it over to Deepak, I would expect you to see the video first. Thank you.
Hey, hi guys. First of all, thanks for joining this session. Very grateful to see a lot of attendees joining this call on an afternoon. So thanks a lot for joining. So just to introduce myself, I know Krishna already introduced me, but just a brief about myself, right? My name is Deepak Rai. I handle the tech sales for the IBM Cloud, and as you can see, my the social credentials are anyways in the presentation. So if you want to follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter, that's my handle, which you can follow. By the way, in today's session, I mean, what we're going to do differently is when you talk about cloud or when you talk about any cloud providers, right? I know basically people talk about the infrastructure. Basically, they talk about the VMs, the hardware, the storage, etc. But today we are not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about right from building the application on the cloud. So how differently you can build your application on the cloud, how differently you can host your applications on the cloud, and how quickly you can start from whether it's born on the cloud kind of a provider or whether you're migrating your existing application from an on-prem to on cloud. So how easily and how quickly you can leverage these tools is something which we're going to discuss right now. Right. So to start off with, just from the agenda point of view, I have just a couple of things. One is regarding the IBM Cloud platform, and one is why IBM Cloud. So that's a simple agenda what I have. I don't want to make it more complicated here. But having said that, when we talk about the IBM Cloud or the IBM Cloud platform, we're going to see in detail as well regarding what exactly is available on the cloud platform and what are the things that you might leverage when you talk about the IBM Cloud here. And also in between, I'm going to do a quick demo on the IBM Cloud where I can quickly create an app and quickly enable DevOps and see and show you guys how easy and how efficiently you can build your application on the IBM Cloud as well. And also, before I go ahead with my first presentation or the first slide, right, I just want to say you guys, if you have any queries or if there is any feedback or if there is any, question and answers when during the session or during my presentation, feel free to, interrupt me with respect to, with the chat or with the audio option what you have, and I'll be able to help you guys. So what I see is a lot of people are saying the audio is unavailable, but I'm not sure I have unmuted myself. But if you still have issues, just let me know. I think we'll be able to help you out here.
Yeah, Deepak, we will just fix
all right, I think I'm good to go.
Yeah, Deepak, please go ahead.
Yeah, all right. Thanks for that, Krishna. So I think the audio is resolved right now. I hope you are able to hear me out. So what I'm going to talk right now is before I go into the details about how you build an application or how you create an application on the IBM Cloud, right? So one good thing about the IBM Cloud is we have a single, one cloud architecture. And this is what you see on the screen right now is nothing but the IBM Cloud, architecture what we have. So what is available here, right from the deployment models, whether it's private or a public deployment, or whether it's a security compliance, what you see, or whether it's the infrastructure services or the platform services what you have. So these are the different kind of offerings that are available on the IBM Cloud. Apart from that, when you talk about data and AI, we do have a plethora of services that are available on the platform as well. Now I'll go in detail regarding all this, but let me just show you what exactly is a one cloud architecture what we have on the IBM Cloud, and this what you see on the screen is nothing but you know uh, some of the one cloud architecture what you can see on the IBM Cloud, right? So moving on, when you talk about the deployment models, right? See, when you talk about cloud, it's not only about public cloud. Now, people do ask about the dedicated cloud offering or the private cloud offering as well. Now, how do we leverage IBM Cloud into these different offerings? As you know, what you see on the cloud right now, or what you see on your website right now, is predominantly public cloud. But if the organization wants to have something like a dedicated cloud offering, when you say dedicated, it's more about your single tenant infrastructure on the cloud, or a single tenant environment on the cloud for that specific customers. Then we can provide dedicated offering to that customer as well. Or if you want to leverage an IBM Cloud in a private mode, then that offering is also available. But on today's session, we're going to focus more on the public cloud services. But having said that, if you want to have similar kind of practice or similar kind of experience on the dedicated and the private, so they are also available for you on the cloud offering on the IBM Cloud, right? So what we're going to focus today is more from the platform side of it. I know I have marked the infra and the platform side separately here, but what we're going to focus today is more on the platform side of it. I'm going to talk a brief about the infrastructure what we have, the services what we have, and and also some of the key offerings what are available. But the primary focus is more from the platform as a service part of it, because this is one thing that can differentiate ourselves from not only the rest of the providers, but also for a developer like you guys, or for an architect like you guys, how you can quickly leverage something that is already available and start building your application, whether it's a development or a test or a production environment as such. Right. So we're going to talk about those offerings right now, and we're going to even look into what are these specific uh, application offerings or the middleware offerings that we are providing right now. Right. So before that, one of the important things for you to understand is where exactly our cloud data centers are available. I mean, as of now, we do have more than 60 plus data centers. The number is actually much more than that right now. And if you talk about the closest data center, we do have it in Chennai. So that's the closest one what we have. But otherwise, we have data centers in Hong Kong, Sydney, and of course across Europe and Americas as well. And to add to that, we also do have multi-zone data centers. Now, most of you might be knowing about multi-zone data centers if you have worked with other cloud providers. But if not, these are nothing but data centers within a region which are kilometers apart. For example, let me give you a quick example. If you have deployed an application in Dallas, and if you choose a multi-zone as one of your deployment, then what happens is automatically what we do is we do take care of those deployments in all the three Dallas data centers, and these data centers are kilometer apart. And what would help you is nothing but give you a high availability out of the box, and give you something like a near DR kind of an option out of the box without you doing much on top of it, right? So, and from our side of it, when we talk about multi-zone, we always talk about three data centers. It's not two. For us, multi-zone is always three. So we ensure that all your multi-zone capabilities, or your application that are hosted in your multi-zone data centers, you will be able to leverage it, and you'll be able to get all the features and the functionalities that is required from a multi-zone data centers as such. So the important slide of today's topic, one of the key things that we're going to talk about today's topic, and after this I'm going to show you a demo as well, is regarding the different capabilities and the different offerings what we have when you talk about the application deployment, right? So primarily when you talk about application development, usually what do you guys do? I mean, for example, I'll take a simple example. You have a Java application what you need to build, and if it's a Java or MySQL kind of an application scenario, so you have Java as an application, you have MySQL as a database. What do? I mean, you first look for an environment, whether it's an infrastructure or whether it's like a bare metal kind of an offering or a physical infrastructure, and you install the things that is required, maybe a JDK or a JRE or something like that. And for MySQL, you install the necessary modules, and then on top of it, you deploy a WAR file and write your database scripts and build your entire application as such. Now that's a normal process what anybody would follow in terms of building an application in a traditional way and in a traditional infrastructure way. But now things have changed, right? I mean, we talk about containers, and I'm sure most of you know about containers as well. So containers provide those maximum flexibility. Now, if you want to deploy an application on the container platform, then we give you a flexibility of deploying it in containers as well. So we do support Kubernetes as a service on the IBM Cloud, where you can start leveraging these container platforms, right? Or we also heard about the recent Red Hat offerings as well on the IBM Cloud, right? So if you want to leverage some of the OpenShift offerings, then you can leverage these OpenShift offerings on the IBM Cloud as well, where you can deploy your containers, whether it's a Docker container or whether it's any containerized containers what you have, which you want to run it on a Docker or an OpenShift environment, you'll be able to do that as well. But that's the container journey, which most of you would have already taken, or most of you are, leveraging it right now. But apart from that, there's something else on the IBM Cloud which you can leverage, which is nothing but Cloud Foundry. Now, what Cloud Foundry provides is, for some of you who have not explored the Cloud Foundry option, is it provides you instant runtimes. When you say instant runtimes, see, for a same example of a application developer, right? Whether it's a Java developer who's using MySQL, so as a developer, he shouldn't worry about the underlying infrastructure. I mean, you should never bother about what's installed down and what's infrastructure is provided, what OS is provided, or do I need to install a specific version of JDK or a JRE or something like that. As a developer, what we feel is he should bother about developing his application and deploying his application. That's his primary responsibility. So Cloud Foundry does that for you. So Cloud Foundry helps anybody to come quickly into a cloud environment, click of a button, his application will be up and running, and he can start leveraging and start developing his application over there. That's what Cloud Foundry would provide. So probably after this slide, I'll give a quick demo about how the Cloud Foundry environment works, and also how I'll enable DevOps and do an end-to-end right from information gathering to continuous delivery and deployment. The end-to-end DevOps stack I'll be able to showcase and leverage to you guys, right, on the IBM Cloud. The last option what we have is a serverless offering. Now, most of you know about the serverless offering, or the function as a service, what some people talk about as well, right? Or even they call it like an event-driven approach. Now, if you have some modules, or if you have some application where you want to deploy it as an like an event-driven approach, then you will be able to deploy it in our serverless offering called as IBM Cloud Functions. Right. Now, I can give a couple of examples here. A push notification. Now, push notification is not a service that you use 24/7, right? It's something that you use when an event occurs. Probably when you deposit a money or when you book a cab. Like book a cab might be a best example, right? Once you book a cab, you get a notification telling that Uber is 5 minutes away or 10 minutes away. Now, you don't have to, write those push notification script in a, big server running 24/7, which doesn't require that kind of a capacity or that kind of a maintenance per se, right? So you can deploy it in a serverless offering where they'll be able to, leverage the push notification. So once somebody books a cab, that push notification module will be enabled. It will, process the event, it'll give the output, and again the event dies. So whatever milliseconds or whatever a microsecond that offering is running, the customer would be charged for it. So that's the whole concept of serverless. It's as good as the customer is not having a server on the cloud. He's just having some event-driven modules or event-driven functions on the cloud, right? So what I'll do right now is I'll quickly show a demo where you'll be able to leverage the IBM Cloud and all the participants here as well, right? You can also log into the IBM Cloud and you'll be able to do the similar thing what I'm doing right now. Okay? So let me start sharing my screen. So as you can see here, this is the IBM Cloud catalog. Now I directly come to the catalog page where I'll be able to see all the plethora of services what we have on the IBM Cloud. So if you heard that video, we do have more than 190 plus services. To be honest, even I lost count regarding number of services what we have, but that's not important. What is important is the capabilities what we provide on the IBM Cloud, right? So we do have, of course, the traditional offering like the infrastructures what we have, whether it's a VM or the bare metal. But as I said, we're gonna not talk much about it, but we're gonna directly go to the compute offering what we have specifically from a platform as a service angle, right? So as you can see here, before I go to Cloud Foundry, you can see the Kubernetes cluster and also the Red Hat OpenShift cluster as well. So if anybody wants to explore Red Hat offerings on the IBM Cloud or the traditional Kubernetes offering, then you'll be able to do that using using our containers offering what we have under compute option. And this is the IBM Cloud function which I was talking about, which is nothing but the functions as a service. Now for the demo part of it, I'm going to leverage Cloud Foundry. So as you can see, Cloud Foundry provides me those instant runtimes. Whether you want to do a Java application, whether it's Tomcat or Liberty, or if it's a Node.js application, whether it's .NET Core or PHP, Java, Ruby, Python, name anything. I mean, pretty much all the middleware runtimes are covered here. And as a developer, if I want to start building an application, let me click on, something like an SDK for Java. And for me to start an application, as you do it in any other VM or a bare metal offering, I don't have to choose anything. I don't have to choose, operating system do I want, what's my number of core, RAM, or something like that, and what's the storage space I require. I don't have to worry about all this stuff. All I will do is I'll write my application name here. For example, in this case, let me write, since it's a Node.js, I'll write maybe Node.js initials, EP, and let me give some tags saying it's a dev environment, and let me click on create, right? If, of course, if the domain name is not taken by anyone else, if it's taken, it would throw out me an error telling that it's taken, I need to change it. Otherwise, I hope it's not. It would create an application for me, right? So it would, wow, it's pretty strange that somebody has taken it. But anyways, let me do it Node.js 22. Right? So now what happens is it will create an environment for me in the London region because I didn't change the region to something else. It'll go to the London data center. It'll create a Node.js application, install all the Node modules that is required, and a Hello World application would be up and running. So I, as a developer, I don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure. I don't have to worry about the underlying, the number of cores and the RAM. Of course, I can see the RAM, I can change it, but I don't have to worry about it further as well. And if you want to auto scale it, it will automatically do it by adding one of the services what we have. So as a developer, all I'll be focusing on is developing this application and deploying this application on the cloud. I'll not worry about the underlying infrastructure. So that's the whole point of bringing in Cloud Foundry as a service to you so that you can leverage these offerings on the IBM Cloud. Right. Now, in a couple of minutes, it would actually start. So what might be happening right now is probably it might be installing some of the node modules that is required. Even for a Hello World application, it might require few of the node modules to run, right? And also it will build me a script where it will automatically have an index.html file with the Hello World page in it. So once I click on visit the application URL, once it starts, I'll be able to visit the Hello World application as well. Now, since till that happens, right, as you can see, okay, now my application is already up and running. As you can see, even within a minute or maybe within 2 minutes, I have just created an application in front of me without even writing a single line of code, right? And this is a Hello World application that I've created. Now, the good part about it, this is not it, right? I mean, I'll not be able to do anything with the Hello World application, but it's a good start. It's a good start for any developer who's developing an application, right? So now what I'll do is, let me come down. I can see the usage, I can see the billing, and of course, it's just started, so you'll not be able to see any charges right now. What I'll do is I'll enable something called as continuous delivery here, which is nothing but our DevOps pipeline. Let me click on enable. So once I enable here the continuous delivery, what happens internally, I'll be able to, create 4 different services. Now, what are these 4 different services? So when you talk about DevOps, primarily people talk about, either requirement gathering or issue tracker. They talk about source code repository. They talk about, one ID where somebody can work together and somebody can build an application. And the last thing and the most important thing is continuous integration and continuous delivery. These are the 4 most important things what anybody wants when you talk about the DevOps platform. So here on the Cloud Foundry or on the Kubernetes side of it, when an application developer develops an application, what they'll do is they'll be able to, automatically create those 4 important services that is required for DevOps, and they'll be able to create it on the IBM Cloud. Now you might come back and say that, okay, you're providing these offerings, which is good. I mean, where I'll be able to do a lot of things. But you might say that, my developer is already using Jenkins. My developer is already using Jira, Jenkins for delivery pipeline or continuous delivery or something like that, and Jira for, issue tracker or requirement gathering per se. And also we might say that instead of GitLab, I'm using GitHub, or I might use, Bitbucket or something like that, right? So what to do then? So the good part about here is, let me just create the default one what we have. But the good part about here in the IBM Cloud is, although we are providing the default offerings on the DevOps side of it, if you are leveraging any open source tools, right, whether it's Jenkins, Jira, or whether it's even a Bitbucket for that matter, right, you would be able to add these other or third party tools on our DevOps pipeline as well. So as a developer, you don't have to worry about learning some new tools or leveraging some new offerings that is provided to you. So if you are leveraging any open source offering, or if you're leveraging any third party offering which can be exposed as an API or something like that to any other cloud, we would be able to we would give the flexibility for you to leverage that in our IBM Cloud as well. Now, as you can see, there is a issue tracker, there is a source code repository through Git, there is a delivery pipeline, and we have an Eclipse Orion IDE where somebody can go and develop an application and all that. So in this demo, what I'll do is the most important thing, right? One of the things that everyone asks is how your delivery pipeline works. I mean, does it actually work? When I click on commit a code, when I do some changes, will I be able to see those changes, or will these changes be reflected? And how automated is it, right? So let me show you the delivery pipeline here. As you can see, there are two stages here. Of course, I'll add this service, that's okay. So there are two stages here. One is the build stage and one is the deploy stage, right? So if you want to add more stages, you'd be able to do that as well. You can add a test stage where you can write some manual testing scripts, or if you want to add any other stages where you build, you test, you deploy into UAT environment, and then probably first into dev environment, then into UAT environment, and then do some load testing and before putting into production or something like that, you'd be able to do that as well. So this provides that flexibility for you, right? Now, just to showcase the IDE as well, again, as I said, all these offerings are good, all these offerings are there, but it's not mandatory that you use. If you're using some Eclipse IDE locally, or if you're using some Notepad, or anything for that matter, right, to develop your code, you need not necessarily have an IDE per se, right? If you're doing that, go ahead and continue doing that. You don't have to leverage it, but what our toolchain will help you is, combining all the different tools what you are already leveraging into one particular, chain of all these services what you want to integrate, right? So that's the what we're doing right now, right? So what I'll do right now is, let me quickly, show you what we have in terms of our IDE as well. So as you can see, in the index.html, I'll be able to go here, make some changes to the code and save it and do some editing as well. So the whole point is, if you want to do something on the cloud environment as well, I'll be able to leverage that too, right? So that's a good part about having these offerings on the cloud, and this is not only for the Cloud Foundry offering. Even if you want to leverage it for Kubernetes, or if you want to leverage it for any deployments on the cloud, you'll be able to leverage all our DevOps offerings. So let me stop sharing my screen. Yeah, and let me come back to the the offerings that we have on the cloud side of it, right? So now, since we spoke about these offerings, one thing common about all these offerings, what you see, right, even with the Red Hat inclusion, all these are open source, right? Right from the serverless offering. Now, most of you may not be knowing, our serverless offering is based on something called as OpenWhisk, which is nothing but a Apache open source project what they have. Or if the Cloud Foundry offering, what I showed you just now, right, where I was able to quickly create an application within a minute, right? Even that's a open source offering. The containers, Kubernetes, or the OpenShift is still an open source, and of course VMs and bare metal is nothing but a VM and bare metal, right? Where you can install whatever you want. So that's a good part about the cloud offering what you see here. Now, which may not be the case in most of the our competitive cloud offering as well. Not everything may not be your open source product over there, but what we do is we want to leverage most of the open source platform what we have, and we want to provide it as a service on the IBM Cloud, right? So moving further, when you talk about the different services, now when you talk about application, there are two parts, right? One, you build an application, whether it's Java or any kind of an application that you build. The second part is the services to it. When I say services, it might be database as a service, or it might be analytics on top of it, it might be a monitoring service, or something like that. So usually we divide it into two parts. Now, before I go ahead into deep dive regarding the services, let me talk about one of the key important differentiator what we have on the IBM Cloud is nothing but the Watson services, what we see, right? So under the Watson side of it, we do have plenty of services on the IBM Cloud, whether it's a data science tool using Watson Studio, what we leverage on the IBM Cloud, or whether it's APIs that we provide on the IBM Cloud. So there are a lot of tools which you can leverage, whether it's a data lake kind of a use case where you can integrate the data from different sources, do some enhancing of your or cleanizing of the data, and provide some informative reports. You can leverage some of our data science experience offering over there, or from a API side of it, we are able to provide a lot of the Watson APIs out of the box for you. Now, of course, when you talk about the APIs, or when you talk about the offerings what we provide on the IBM Cloud, there are a lot of use cases which we have already built, and there are a lot of use cases that are already available for you to leverage right now. Right. So the first thing what you can see here is the conversation, or nothing but the Watson assistant what we have. Now, if you want to build an interactive chatbot, or if you want to build an interactive like an FAQ kind of an environment, right? Then you can use the Watson conversation services. Now, we have one of the leading banks in India actually leveraging these services. I'm sure you might have most of the apps where there are chatbot services, and one of the leading banks in India is actually using our Watson conversation service as their chatbot, a agent over there, right? And also we do have discovery services. Now, if you want to do any kind of a natural language search on a large set of data, then you will be able to leverage something like a discovery services over there. So the good part about it, I mean, of course, it does a lot of pretty things and a lot of interesting things from the cognitive side of it, or the the AI ML side of it. But the good part about all these services is they are all available as a REST APIs. So that means even if you deploy, or even if you want to leverage these APIs from an on-prem environment, from a cloud, or not only IBM Cloud, right, whether it's AWS, or whether it's Azure, or whether it's Google, or any other cloud for that matter, right, you would be able to leverage these services from any environment, as long as, of course, you can talk publicly to our cloud, right? So because these are available as an API, and it really doesn't matter whether it's a web application or a desktop application or a mobile application. You can obviously integrate it and leverage these offerings. So the key things that I spoke about, like a chatbot, or maybe building a search engine on top of an enterprise environment, is something which we see a lot of attraction in the market. But otherwise, we do have other services like speech to text, text to speech, and language translator. Or for the image part of it, we do have visual recognition, and also we do have a few more services that has been added up in the Watson side of it. But the whole point here is, the whole idea here is for you to leverage it, for you to use it, you'll be able to access it through the IBM Cloud. Now, one thing that if you have noticed in the video, right, they talked about something called as light services, or the the light account, something like that. Now, most of you might come back and ask me that how do I leverage this? How do I start off? Because as an individual, I want to start off, and maybe if I'm interested, then of course I want to buy these services and all that, right? So when you talk about the services or the costing, and I see one of the questions for the costing as well, right? So how does it work? So let me again start share my screen. Let me come back to the catalog. So once you create an account on IBM Cloud, what happens is by default you have something called as light account. Okay, so this is not a 30-day free trial account, or this is not a 1-year free trial account. This is an account which is free forever. That means you'll have an IBM Cloud account forever, and you don't have to, and while signing up, you don't have to worry about, adding any cards or anything per se, because nothing will be charged for you, right? But what you'll be able to leverage is all the services which has the light offering. So as you can see within the catalog, if I search for light, so all these services and pretty much everything is covered here, right from Watson to data to AI to developer tools, DevOps integration, and the push notification and the web and application. Pretty much everything is covered, right? But the catch here is, of course, everything will be restricted to number of API calls that you can use in a month or something like that, right? So when you go to Watson Assistant, and let it just load. And if you see the light plan, the how it will be charged, or of course, sorry, it won't be charged for you because it's a light account, and but you will be able to use 10,000 messages per month or something like that. But the good part here is if you want to understand how our pricing works, you can see the standard plan or you can see any other plan which has the pricing in it. So even without logging in, I of course logged in here. Even without logging in, if you go to catalog, if you go to click on any of the services, you'll be able to understand how our pricing model also works for you. Right? I think that answers the question. So let me come back. Let me stop sharing my screen. And that's all what we have on the Watson side of it, right? So I'll be taking some of the question at the end as well. So let me continue with the presentation. So let's talk about the different use cases, right? Now, see, IBM Cloud, of course, has plenty of services. You can build your application on the cloud. There are a variety of offerings what we provide, right from, the application development to Watson, to databases, to, analytics, to ML, to AI, and all that. Now, I didn't have a separate slide talking about each individual services because when you talk about services, it's one part, but you talk about through a use case, it's more informative and it's more, more educative, I can say, in terms of, everybody understanding how you can leverage those individual services as well. Now, when you talk about, cloud native application, this is something, terminology what we see everywhere, right? They want to build a microservice kind of an application, or they want to build a cloud native application. How you can do it on an IBM cloud? Now, what you can leverage is either you can leverage the Kubernetes offering or the Cloud Foundry offering, which you already saw, and you can leverage some of our services what we have as a service, right? Whether when you talk about databases, we do have Postgres, Redis, Mongo, Cloudent, and DB2 as a service on the IBM Cloud as well. So you can leverage one of those databases as a service for you, and you can build your application using, maybe a Cloud Foundry or a Kubernetes kind of environment. So that's how you can, ensure that you have a cloud native or a microservice kind of an application which is built on the cloud. The good part about here is since it's everything as a managed services, you can scale up and down based on your necessity as well. So there is an auto scaling service which you can leverage where you can horizontally scale up and down your application based on the needs. And of course, some of the parts can be, deployed on the IBM Cloud Functions as well, where they'll be able to leverage the IBM Cloud Functions offering, which you can leverage it and which you can deploy some of your functions as a service or event-driven protocols over there. When you talk about IaaS or when you talk about compute-intensive workload, right, we would still go ahead with a traditional offering, whether it's a VM offering or whether it's a bare metal offering on the cloud. So, so as you know, right, we do have a bare metal offering on the cloud as well, where a customer would be able to, use the physical server on the cloud, just like how he's using a VM, right? Going further, in terms of, data center extension, we do have VMware offerings. Now, I'm sure there are many other presentations which talks about only about the VMware offering on the cloud. But yeah, let me not talk more about it. When you talk about data storage and backup, we do have object storage as a service as well. So whether you want to use the object storage as a cold vault storage or as a standard storage, as a retrieval storage, then you would be able to leverage our cold object storage offering as well. The good part here is the pricing varies for the object storage based on the necessity. Now, if you're using an object storage just for an archival of a data, then you can leverage one of the, the pricing offering what we have. Or if you want to retrieve the files more, then we have another pricing offering. So based on the needs or based on the use cases, we have a different object storage offering for you. So as I said, for the data science guys, right, if you want to, run your Python, R scripts or, Spark kind of an application, we do have a data science experience tool on the IBM Cloud. Now, there are plenty of services under the Watson which you can see. I think primarily you can talk about, something like a Watson Studio, which you can leverage, to build your data science kind of an experience on the cloud as well. Now, whether it's right from fetching the data from multiple sources, whether it's doing the data science experience using R, Python, or Spark, or whether it's finally doing like a reporting kind of an environment, right, using Cobras. So the end-to-end feature for data lake use cases, can be done through something like a Watson Studio and the analytics engine that we have. And finally, when you talk about the machine learning use cases, or when you talk about the chatbot use cases, right? So we do have Watson as a service available for you where you can leverage it. Now, I only spoke about chatbots here because that's something which many people use within the market. But having said that, there are other interesting services on the Watson too, which you can leverage, whether it's an NLP or whether it's a image recognition kind of a services. And I know there was a question on the pricing as well. Most of the time, the Watson pricing works on the number of APIs, but again, it depends on the services as well, because there are some services where it's charged a little differently, but otherwise most of the times it's based on the number of APIs which the customer would leverage or which the customer would use. Now, when you talk about these offerings as well, right? We do have industry solutions as well. When you talk about, then you might ask, what is an industry solution, right? What can you call as an industry solutions? Now, whether it's a manufacturing industry or automation industry, or whether it's travel and transportation or something like that, right? So we do have key offerings which is focused on that. And basically, when you talk about these industries, we're talking about different IoT use cases. So we do have an IoT offering specific to manufacturing, IoT offering specific to connected cars, which you probably have already heard of, read about it, or we have an IoT offering for similar kinds of environment as well, whether it's depending on the different industry segments what you have, right? So instead of having a one IoT service, or instead of having a standard IoT service, what we have done is, based on the different industry capabilities, we do have different offerings, because we understand that the capabilities for different industries are different, and giving a standard offering on the IoT may not solve the industry problem, or may not solve the the end customer problem per se. Now we have spoken all about the cloud offering, and we have spoken all about the different services what we have on the IBM Cloud, right? But finally, we're going to discuss about why IBM Cloud, and why do you want to leverage IBM Cloud when there are so many other players in the market as well. From the technology wise, from the competitive wise, I've already spoken some of the key differentiators what we have, whether it's the developer productivity or speed, where I can quickly leverage and start building an application, or whether it's an open standard which you can leverage, right? So as you've seen, whether it's when you talk about application development, it's more of the open source tools what you leveraged on the IBM Cloud so far, or whether it's a choice of consistency, right? Based on the different workloads of the application, whether it's Cloud Foundry, or whether it's containers or bare metal or VM, based on the workload, or based on the use cases, you can actually use some of those different offerings what we have on the IBM Cloud. And the good part about, and the biggest advantage on the IBM Cloud is on our cognitive services, because this is something which we have been using it for quite a while, and which is something which we can positively say that we are, providing better functionality and a better feature wise because of our experience on the cognitive space, right? And that's what you can see in the Gartner or the Forrester reports as well, right? When you talk about cognitive services on the cloud right now, right? So that's a good part about having this benefits. But it's very difficult for me to put a benefit on the IBM Cloud or why IBM Cloud in a single slide. Usually what happens is, depending on the use case and depending on the services what we use, I can talk about the differentiating factor from us to our competitor, or not only about competitor, right, but from us, from a technology point of view, how enhanced or how good we are from a technology side of it. Finally, the last slide, which we're going to talk about, is more from a the industry compliance and the overview, right? So when you talk about cloud, when you talk about cloud offering or the public cloud offering, most of you talk about the different security functionality what we can provide out of the box, and what are you compliant to, whether it's an IOC compliant, whether it's a SOC compliant, or whether it's a PCI compliant. You're pretty much compliant to most of the things. And the good part about it, even without you coming back to me or coming back to IBM, you can go to this website, the ibmcloud.com/cloud/compliance. You'll be able to see what are the things which we're already compliant to. If you want some certificates out of the box, you'll be able to leverage that as well. So this is predominantly what I want to discuss on the IBM Cloud. So what I'll do right now, I'll go to the questions, and I'll see if there are some questions which I can probably answer as well. So one of the question was, how does the NLP costing work? In this case, like I already showed you, right? If you go to our catalog, if you go to our different offerings, there are pricing available. Most of the time it's per API for the Watson services, but again, it's better to go there and check how the pricing actually works. But when you talk about NLP, you should look into a service called as natural language understanding, and I think if I'm not wrong, it's also charged by the services. The other question was, can it be integrated with chatbots? So I don't know what can be integrated, but yeah, if you want to integrate chatbots into a phone, mobile application or an existing application, or whether it's a desktop or a web application, you would be able to do that. So it need not be, it's flexible based on your different use cases. Another question was regarding, can I run Oracle, Linux, and Windows? I just want to see in single server. Okay, that's a good question. So one of the key reasons why we are providing a bare metal kind of an offering is because in an Oracle license, right, it clearly says that you have to deploy it. You can't, deploy it in a shared offering. So what it says is you can't. So what it at least means is you can't actually deploy an Oracle database in a VM or any kind of a shared kind of an infrastructure, because that's what its license clearly says, right? So using our bare metal offering, what we have on the IBM Cloud, you would be able to leverage anything, right? You'll be able to provide a physical infrastructure or a private infrastructure or Oracle, and have a Linux environment, and you have another hypervisor, and then put a Windows environment separately. So you can put it in a single server, but of course you build your own hypervisor on top of it, and you create your own private kind of a servers within the public cloud. So what happens in a bare metal offering is it's as good as we are giving a physical server to you. You do whatever you want on top of it. That's how you can leverage such a complicated kind of scenario for you guys. Another one was, can we get support for NLP, speech to text, and text to speech development? Yeah, of course, you can always get in touch with us. So we do have Watson certified partners that are available. Of course, we have people in IBM as well, where they can help you in terms of building an application using these services. And it's need not be only for Watson; it can be for anything for that matter. Okay, the question was, can it be integrated with chatbots and BPM? Yeah, see, within, if I'm not wrong, at least from our BPM solution, we do have the integration with an APIs, which you can actually use it, and that's how you're going to leverage these APIs. For us, it doesn't matter where you integrate, right? Because what we provide is an APIs for you. If you want to leverage it anywhere, as long as the end product or the end solution is allowing you to use those APIs, then you can actually leverage those APIs for it, and deploy our solutions anywhere. Regarding the RCM and WhatsApp solutions, to be honest, like something like a Watson conversation can be, of course, leveraged in WhatsApp as well, because since it's based on the API, as long as WhatsApp supports, like I said previously, you'll be able to leverage it as well. So that's how it is. So the another question was regarding the bare metal in the bare metal model, how the hypervisor is installed. I mean, there are a couple of ways. So what we do is, when you create an offering, you get an option of installing it, which then of course the IBM Cloud will install it for you. But otherwise, if you want to bring your own hypervisor on top of it, we allow you that option as well. Of course, finally we do the whatever the installation for you, but you can bring your own hypervisor on top. The other question was, do you have presence in all the major verticals and horizontals? Like I said, right, one of the major banks in India is actually leveraging the Watson services. So that's a good part about having the cloud usage even in the banks as well. But otherwise, when you talk about different industries, right, whether it's a manufacturing, so right from connected cars, if you saw the Suzuki ad, then it's nothing but it's running on our IBM Cloud, right, which is nothing but our connected car offering what we have. Whether it's a manufacturing industry where there's a lot of IoT use cases which are running over there, and whether it's the different industry segment where they have moved some of their critical offering on the cloud, then we have our presence over there. As you know, IBM, our enterprise customer, or the large customers usually trust IBM with respect to having having IBM products within their solutions, and that's how we will be able to manage most of our large clients who are leveraging IBM Cloud right now within India and of course across the globe as well. Another question was, how flexible it is to move workloads such as PHP and SAP in and out of the cloud. See, in terms of an PHP offering, it's pretty flexible because it's nothing but a PHP offering, right? It's up to you how do you want to leverage, whether you want to leverage Cloud Foundry or Kubernetes or VM or bare metal on it. For the SAP offerings, we do have specific SAP offerings on the cloud, right? So we do have a bare metal offering which is specific to SAP, but I would encourage you to leverage that when you talk about moving your SAP on the cloud. Another question was in terms of cloud security. Do you have a cloud security checklist? So of course we do have. So if you can get in touch with us, you can always, I can always provide you the security checklist what we have. So this is what happens when you work with most of the banking providers or most of the, FSS providers as well, because they do have their own checklist which they give us usually and we fill it. But having said that, when we do have a checklist telling that these are the things what we cover, of course our compliance page what I showed you does provide you most of the details what is required for you guys, and in the same compliance page there is a checklist, security checklist offering as well. If you're not able to get it, just let me know, I'll be able to provide it as well. Another question regarding having a broader idea if you are okay, that is the same continuation of the same question, but yeah. So of course there is a security checklist what we have. Like I said, from the compliance document, you'll be able to leverage the security checklist as well, right? So do you have the next one regarding the email address? You can always connect back to me using my credential. It's my social LinkedIn and the Twitter accounts is at the rate it's Deepak, right? So I'm sure the PPT would be sent to you separately. That's how you can leverage the presentation. Any more questions? I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, thanks, Deepak. Thanks for those insights. Okay, I could see that there are a couple of questions, and can we unmute Palaparthi? He has raised his hand. Yeah, Palaparthi, please go ahead with your question. Palaparthi, we can hear you. No, we can't hear you. Can we move on to Vishwajit?
Yes, madam. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
My question is, I have sent my question in the chat window, but again, I'm repeating that question. Is there any RESTful API service available for voice-based authentication?
Can you please come again, Vishwajit?
My question is there any RESTful API available for voice-based authentication?
Yeah, Vishwajit. Okay, so it's a good question. So we do have app ID service which can do a lot of things from a single sign-on or from an app perspective. Now limited to the text. It's not on the voice yet. So we don't have right now for the voice-based authentication, but we do have a single, authentication service which is primarily on the, app ID or the LDAP kind of an offering what we have.
Vishwa, can we move on to Palaparthi? Palaparthi, can you please ask the question? We can't hear you. Okay, anyways, Deepak, I have a couple of questions for you. We would like to know that do you have IBM Cloud data center in India?
Yeah. So
this is one question. Yeah.
Okay. So we do have right now a data center in Chennai. So that's the closest one what we have. So yeah, to answer your question, we do have a data center in India, and of course, most of our offerings, not only infrastructure, but even our platform offerings are also available over there, right from Kubernetes to any of the data services that we have.
Okay, great. And the question number 2 is, with Red Hat coming in, that's quite interesting. Will you have OpenShift as a service in cloud?
Now that's something which most of my customers do ask as well. What about the Red Hat story? So as you know, we have already GA'd one of the services called OpenShift on the IBM Cloud, but so that's already there. So you can always leverage it. It's also available in our multi-zone data centers as well, and also any of the Red Hat offerings what you have, right? Whether it's an OpenShift offering, whether it's a VM offering, these are all available on the IBM Cloud. So it will be one single portal for you to leverage the Red Hat OpenShift offering and also the IBM Cloud offerings as well.
Yeah, that's really great to know. So I believe that we have covered all the questions and there's nothing left as such. But Deepak, I would request you if you can just tell us your final word. what exactly the key takeaways from this webinar we can take home today? Be here.
So yeah, so what I was saying right now is, see, first of all, thanks everyone for joining, because it was a good session where you had a lot of interactive questions as well, which was good to know, and it was good to answer as well. There are a lot of things that you can leverage on the IBM Cloud, like you already have seen, and there are a few relevant things that you have asked, which you can go back and leverage as well. So that's one part to it. But having said that, as you know, right, in today's session we didn't focus on the traditional topics like like a VM or like a physical like a servers on the cloud. It was more on the application development side of it and how quickly you can build your application. The whole point of today's agenda or the today's session was how quickly you can start building your application and deploying it on the IBM cloud and leveraging some of the tools that are available, so that you as a developer, you as a end customer don't have to worry about the other things which the cloud is supposed to take care by itself. You just focus on the things which you are good at, right? Developing an application and deploying it on the cloud. So that's the whole point. That's the whole focus about of this webinar. But if you still want to leverage the traditional things, these are all still there on the IBM cloud. Yeah. So the key takeaway is, as a developer, use these tools to quickly build. Either be successful or if you want to fail faster using these tools that are available.
That's true. We need to get rid of the legacy architecture and move on with the latest buzz, technology, and whatever is happening around us. So thank you so much, Deepak, for joining us and for your thoughtful insights. I would request the audience to stay on because we have an interesting video from IBM which we will play just after we end this session. On behalf of the Economic Times, I would like to thank all the participants for joining this webinar. Once you log off, automatically a window will open to capture your feedback. Please fill in the feedback form in detailed manner. Thank you again for joining the Economic Times live webinar powered by IBM.